Good evening and welcome to the Audit, Governance and Standards Committee. Before we start the meeting, I have a few housekeeping announcements to make. The microphones are not very sensitive, so will members speak directly into them when talking? Members of the public are welcome to film, audio record, photograph or tweet the public proceedings of the meeting. I'd ask anyone in the room to please be considerate towards other people and take care not to disrupt the proceedings. Have we received any apologies for the meeting?
We've received apologies from Councillor Adam Hood, Chair.
Thank you. And presumably Councillor Neil is substituting,
No,
is that
I'm a
right?
full member.
You are a full member?
No,
Okay.
Chair, I'm a full member.
Okay, apologies.
Do you want Councillor Williams to have given his apology?
I haven't heard anything from Councillor Williams. Has anybody else? No. Okay. Maybe he's been delayed to get here. Confirmation of all members present confirm if they are members, voting members of the council. Thank you. There are no urgent items. I note that the printed papers have included an item on schools by error. We will be running by the public version of the agenda. Does any member wish to declare any interest or dispensation in respect of any item or issue to be considered at the meeting? Can the members please approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of September 2025?
Agreed.
Thank you. Now invite the officer to present on the item the internal audit progress report, and Aaron Winter and Angela Mason-Bell would like to come up, please. Welcome. Is there anything you'd like to say in advance of the report? Yeah, please go ahead. Thank you.
We will take the paper as read. Obviously, it's our periodic update report on the progress of the internal audit plans for the finalisation of 24-25 and our ongoing progress of the 25-26 internal audit plan. It's pleased to include the final two summaries from 24-25 and a further 3 reports have been finalised from 25-26 as well. We've got a lot of work in progress at the moment, so a lot of engagement across the council to deliver on our plan, but we remain confident that we will get it done by the end of the financial year, as we always do, and to inform our annual reporting in the summer. It also covers the follow-up of internal audit recommendations that we've previously raised, and the outcome at the moment for this committee is that there is a 93% implementation rate, which is comparable to the last committee reports. That does also include an update on the housing solutions, applications and allocations audit that was presented at the last committee. Just to flag that some of those dates, recommendations weren't due for implementation, but we've obviously provided an update from management on progress today as requested. That was all I was going to say on our paper, but happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you. And I wondered why the figures did not include the status of the housing solutions applications allocations review.
Because they're not yet due for full implementation per the agreed implementation date, that therefore they wouldn't be included in those because they're not due yet. So that 93% is anything where an implementation date is fallen due.
Thank you. Makes sense. Thank you very much. Any members have any questions? No? No? Andy.
Thanks very much for that. Is there anything you would think it would be helpful for us as a committee to chase?
Sorry. I don't think so at this stage. We've had quite a lot of progress on the IT recommendations, which is good to see. There are still some dates that have been moved, but I think there's clear rationale or clear explanations in terms of what the next steps are. I would suggest that if there's further delays come the next meeting, then we could potentially, like we did previous, I think was it about 18 months ago, we highlighted particular audits that you could put an emphasis on following up. or supporting us in, if that helps.
Thank you very much. I think that would be helpful, Chair.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy to note report. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I think we've doing. So we now move on to item 7, and I also would like to include item 8, bring them together. So one of each of you from each party, and then, because in case we have any questions we'd like to ask to the external auditor as part of this report. Yeah.
You could probably bring officers there and.
Oh, we can get some more chairs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we can have more if we can bring more chairs. That's fine. Yeah, that's okay. Thank you. Sorry to spring that on you. Thank you. Ah, even
I don't mean we have to move the tables.
table as well. Yeah, yeah. Only the best. Yeah. Tim thought he was going to get out of it. Oh, well, we've got 3 officers there. Okay.
I'm pleased to present the statement of accounts for 24-25. So first recommendation, note the adjustment to the accounts. Review and approve the statement of accounts for 24-25. Approve the draft letter of representation for both the council and the pension fund, and authorize the strategic director of resources in consultation with the chair to make any final amendments before the auditors sign off. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is that the statutory publication deadline is 27th of February 2026. As you are aware that the local government sector is currently facing lots of challenges, including multiple years of disclaimed audit opinion. In contrast, Southwark is in a much stronger position, and we remain on track to achieve unqualified opinion for 24-25, and this is really a testament of the robustness of our financial management and the effective collaboration with the auditors throughout the year. In terms of the recommendations made by the auditors, the audit committee was updated in July in terms of the action plan, and further update as at now is most of the recommendations are implemented. Only 4 are outstanding, 2 of which will be implemented when the system is implemented in 2027, and the 2 in relation to valuations will be implemented as part of the 25-26 closing. Yes, happy to take any questions.
Do members have any questions?
Well, if we hear from the external auditor.
Oh, okay.
first,
Yeah, okay.
then we can-
Okay, no, that would be helpful as well. Thank you. Thanks. Fleur. Philip, yeah.
Lovely, thank you. So we do have a number of reports in the pack today. Philip and I will take you through those. We'll take them as read, so just highlight some of the key findings for you, but I would like to extend our thanks to Hasina and the finance team at Southwark in particular for the way in which they have supported our many audit requests in recent weeks. And we are close to completing our audit work on the financial statements, and we do anticipate issuing an unqualified opinion on the financial statements in due course. So if I just take you to page 4 of our first report, which I believe is 215 of your pack. It's titled Our Audit Findings. Are the page numbers the same? Are they not? It's the first of our reports. $227. 231. Okay, so it is 231, 232, 234. No, it's fine. I think it's 234, our audit findings. Is that right? Yeah? Lovely. Thank you. So this is a reminder of the areas that we highlighted as being significant audit risk. So the areas where we think there's most likely to be the risk of misstatement. And so we focus our work there. And the first area that we considered was the valuation of council dwellings. We did identify a factual error, just to provide a bit of context to that. This was an error that Clutton's, your external valuers, had made in transposition in their valuation report. So when we looked at all the data that was sitting underneath that supported the valuation, we could see that there was just a number that they had got wrong on their valuation report, and that had been plugged into the accounts. It has been corrected, but it's important to provide that context. It wasn't that we felt the valuation itself had been conducted incorrectly. There was just a typographical mistake in their report, which we picked up. But we did, of course, do a lot of work over the value of council dwellings. That's where we look at the way in which you're valuing the properties based on their geographical location, their beacons. We used our real estate specialists to support us in that work, and overall we found the assumptions that were underpinning that valuation to be balanced, which is good assurance for this committee. So we were comfortable with the way that they had approached that work. We also looked at the wider estimates around land and buildings and found those to be balanced too. We didn't consider that to be such a significant audit risk, but it is a key estimate linked to your fixed assets. The second area where we have to do a lot of audit work and we consider there to be a significant risk is what we refer to as management override of controls. So really that's where management is in theory in a position to override the control environment, and we as auditors have to direct a lot of work in that area to make sure that we're comfortable that that has not happened. So we look at the way in which you do make judgments and estimates in your financial statements, and we also spend a lot of time looking at journal entries. So those are the sort of non-cash entries that get booked into the financial statements to make sure that we're really comfortable that they are well supported. You post thousands of journals over the course of a year, and we have to make sure that we're really comfortable. We're looking at those which are high risk. So we identify criteria. For example, we spent quite a lot of time looking at transactions that appeared to be reducing expenditure in your HRA and increasing expenditure in your general fund, or increasing income in the HRA and decreasing in the general fund, to make sure that they were all supported by robust evidence that we were comfortable with, because we know that that's an area of pressure for the council. We did that, we looked at those entries, we were comfortable that there was nothing untoward, and they all were supported by sound evidence and reasonable explanations. The third area that's a significant risk is the valuation of your pension liability. Again, that's because of the complex assumptions that feed into that. We use our actuarial specialists to support us in that work. And again, whilst we found there was one assumption linked to CPI inflation, which was a little bit optimistic in comparison to our actuarials range, it was still comfortably overall in a reasonable range. So we were comfortable with the value that was booked into the financial statements there. Just in terms of the other estimates, because they're an important area of the accounts, we did also look at your investment property, and similar to last year, we did consider that there was one that had been undervalued, the basis that had been used. It was not material. That was the same last year. You have now corrected that and increased the value in your financial statements, but it's important to note that. On the whole, the items that we identified for correction have been corrected in the financial statements. There's one that has not been, and that is reported there on the right-hand side of the page. So it's not material in the context of the audit, but there was a provision booked in relation to some payments in relation to your pension scheme, which you've provided for. In truth, we didn't think that met the definition of a provision, and it would really just be an expense in next year, but you've left that unadjusted in the accounts. Were you to correct it, your surplus would have increased by £9 million, but we're comfortable that that's not material in the context of the audit, but we report it here for transparency. We did also identify some disclosure changes, and they've been put through. There are none that have been left uncorrected in terms of disclosure items that we thought needed to be updated for. So in terms of where we are with our audit work, we do have a few small final audit queries to close down on the core financial statements. We are just completing the testing of the consolidation of the schools balances, and we will obviously complete our final review of the financial statements that are approved. We do also have some work in respect of an objection, and that work is ongoing. As a result of that, we're not in a position to finalise all of our value for money work in particular, but we are working through that, and we will expect to conclude that and issue the audit completion certificate in early 2026. Since we presented our audit plan, there was just one change. This is on the next page down. This was in relation to the new leasing standard that came in. We thought that might be more of a risk area for us than it ended up being. The values in the end were not hugely material to the council's accounts. You did go through a robust transition plan, and we have done lots of risk assessment and work around that, but we're comfortable that the risk of material misstatement is really low, so we haven't highlighted it specifically as a significant area for the year-end audit. The rest of this paper just goes into a huge amount of detail in relation to the procedures that we performed and our findings, so I will take those as read. But I will just, as it's important I do this at this time of year, confirm our independence as your auditors, which I'm very happy and able to do. As a firm, we do provide some non-audit services to the council. That's in relation to some grant returns that we perform for you. They are permissible services, and we've captured those in the appendix for transparency, but they don't in any way impair our independence. I will pause there for questions on the accounts before handing over to Philip to talk you through our value for money findings.
I've got a few, maybe if I ask two and then come back for some more, depending on what colleagues have got to ask. I was just going to ask about the valuation of council dwellings, the beacon, the samples of beacons, and a very big group that you've got on your page 9, our page 239. Are these street properties? Are they clusters of estates?
I mean, it really varies, doesn't it, Philip? Yeah, do you want to take that one?
So The approach taken for the valuation is to coalesce properties where they are similar in nature, size, location, and quality, and so forth. The valuation approach assumes that you put very, very similar properties together, because that allows you to effectively value on a sample basis and have that sample be representative of the other properties within that group. In respect to the very large one which we've highlighted on that page, what we found is, you can see on the map, there is quite a large spread of properties over quite a large geographic area, which is why we've highlighted this particular beacon. Where the area is larger, there is likely to be greater variety, obviously in the market conditions in the different parts of the borough, but also properties tend to be built in very similar ways on similar streets, so the bigger the area, probably the less similar the properties will be. That said, whilst that beacon group is quite largely spread, the Clutton the valuer did take account of this when valuing that particular beacon, which means that we were able to conclude the valuation was acceptable overall. So the fact it is a particularly large group does not present an error or an issue with the valuation judgments. It is true that it is best practice to have smaller beacon groups. However, you do have to be cognizant the borough has a very, very large amount of social housing, and what may be best practice for the country as a whole does on occasion break down for a borough like Southwark.
And then two quick follow-ups, on slightly different issues. One, I understand then what the National Audit Office is saying, I don't disagree with it, but are they going to hold us up? Are we going to be waiting for them to now come back and do something or tell us something? Where are we with that?
That's me, yeah. Keeps going off, I think.
Page 250 of ours, 20 of KPMG government.
Okay. Could
So
you put
that-
your mic on, Andy? It's gone off, so, yeah.
Sorry, page 250 of ours and 20 of the KPMG report.
Yeah, so that won't in itself prevent us from signing your opinion. It does prevent us from doing the technical certification, and that was the same last year. So we signed the accounts, and they were audited, and that was all kind of locked down, and nothing was going to change. But because the sort of overall consolidation at a group accounts level, at central government level, had not happened, we couldn't issue a very final certificate until September time of this year. So that is the same in the NHS. It's the same for all local authorities. So it won't hold you up having a signed set of accounts. You just wouldn't be able to say that they'd been certified for those purposes as part of the group consolidation, essentially.
Thanks very much. So, Chair, I've got a couple of officers, but I'll...
Yeah, my questions are on value for money, but I don't know if anybody else have any questions. Yeah, Philip's part. Yeah. So.
Okay. I've got a couple of questions for our officers. So, page 261, in terms of risk management, KPMG recommended the risk register is reviewed by both CMT and Cabinet on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Which seems totally reasonable and sensible to me.
Yeah.
And it's now the council is still deciding whether this is presented to Cabinet, but I don't see why it wouldn't be presented to Cabinet.
Yeah.
That's my first question.
Yeah, that's my questions, yeah.
And then 262, next page, 6 service charges. Suggestion that there should be some auditing of leaseholder service charges. That seems a very good idea, and I don't know why council officers would suggest that it wouldn't be taken forward. So can I get some council officer feedback or KPMG feedback on those two issues, please?
Those are pages 261 and 262. Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, please.
If I come back on the risk one, Councillor, you'll see later on the agenda we've got a risk report which presents a new approach that's been through CMT and is co-designed with CMT in terms of a way forward. I imagine the question around cabinet reporting will crop up then. It's not on the forward plan at the moment, but part of the recommendations of the report is seeking your feedback as a committee in terms of where risk reporting is nested going forward, given potential conflicts of us looking at the same reports through different lenses. But we'll pick that up later on, if that's okay. Tim, are you happy to pick up leaseholders?
I am, yes. I think a housing representative would probably be more appropriate to go into the detail of why the particular recommendation here is not being taken forward as it's given. What I do know is that the department responsible for raising service charges is working on a solution which will enable them to issue an itemised service charge statement annually, which will bring more transparency to that. So a partial answer there, I suppose.
Okay. So if I could just briefly follow up, Chair. So,
Yes, please.
so we've got those. I've got one here. I keep getting many of them to look at, but it's the auditing of whether or not they're accurate, rather than leaving it to the residents to then come back to councillors and give me 70 pages for one person to go through, which I'm doing at the moment.
Clive wants to come in, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I may, we'll come back to you with a full response. I mean, certainly before the leaseholder estimates and the leaseholder bills go out, they go through a quality control process in the terms of checking and sample checking and the such like. Currently that's done in-house by our own people. It's not done externally, which I think is where the recommendation was coming from, was it?
That's right, yeah.
But that I wouldn't want you to be given the impression that there's no checking whatsoever. It goes through the usual management checks and balances and reasonableness checks that you'd inspect in a sort of normal control environment.
I want to come back on that because I think that it is a frequent problem that comes up about leaseholders' uncertainty about the robustness of their statements that they're given. And for me, it seems like this is a very good suggestion, and that I think one that we as a committee should take up with the housing department and really try to see whether they will adopt this practice. Did you want to come back? Yeah.
I agree. So
Yeah.
I think we can certainly pick up the reporting on risk in the upcoming reports.
Yes.
But I think in terms of this report,
this item,
asking for a report back on how we ensure the accuracy of service charge for leaseholders is something that we'd want to do, Chair.
Yeah. Thank you. Does any members have any more questions for the officers?
So, Chair, by you, are we confident that everything, you've got an objection, you've got to look at that objection clearly and take a view about what to do about that objection, but are we confident that we're going to basically have signed everything off before our next committee meeting in January?
I think it's highly likely that we'll have signed the financial statements, and that won't hold up the signing of the financial statements. There may be implications for our conclusions on value for money, but in terms of the likelihood of it having what we would consider in audit terms a material impact on the financial statements is relatively remote.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Okay, thank you, that is helpful, thank you. Okay, if there's no more questions, I'd like to thank all the officers for their...
Yes.
Oh, Tim, did you?
No.
We've done part.
Yes.
We've done part of it.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, sorry.
Of course.
I understand your question.
No, of course.
Yes, we'll go through the value for money, and then I will briefly touch on the pension fund reporting as well.
Okay, sorry, thanks.
Thank you. Throughout Fleur says I'll touch briefly on value for money. In the papers pack today, you have a report entitled The Auditor's Annual Report. This is a report setting out the summary of the outcomes of our audit for this year and most importantly in terms of this particular topic, setting out our findings in respect of value for money. This is a draft report. A change to the Code of Audit Practice issued by the National Audit Office requires us to set out our progress as at today, no later than the end of November. As Fleur mentioned, there is some work on objections ongoing, and there is one particular value for money risk which is ongoing. So we will reissue this in final form once all our final conclusions are reached. In respect to value for money, just as a reminder, our responsibilities are to assess whether the council has the right procedures in place to secure value for money, be that through ensuring it is financially sustainable, whether there is good governance to inform proper decision making and risk management, and whether there are appropriate arrangements to improve economy, efficiency and effectiveness, i.e. to reduce costs but also improve the quality of services provided to residents. It's not our responsibility to assess if the council has achieved value for money. That is obviously the role of members to scrutinise, but obviously for members of the public to assess. But we aim to provide some hopefully helpful commentary setting out what the council has done over the course of the year to allow us to reach that conclusion. In respect of our findings, we have not identified any significant weaknesses in arrangements in respect of financial sustainability. This is an improvement on last year. Last year we identified a significant weakness in respect of financial sustainability of the housing revenue account. Whilst the HRA does remain under significant financial pressure, the council has implemented new schemes and arrangements over the course of 24-25, which is allowing it to take action to hopefully reduce overspends and eventually get back to a place of producing sustainable surpluses. So acknowledging this is early days in this process, the council has some way to go to get to the place where it wants to be in respect of HRA financial sustainability. The most significant and pressing part of that risk has been alleviated by the action the council has taken in the year, which is why we no longer identify that significant weakness. In respect of improving economy, efficiency and effectiveness, we also have not identified any significant weaknesses. This is again an improvement on last year, where last year we identified a significant weakness on account of a variety of factors linked to housing, not least adverse inspection outcome by the regulator of social housing. Similarly, the council does still have some way to go. The council is still working hard to improve the quality of the housing service, and is not yet in a place where it is receiving a compliant grading by the regulator. However, we were satisfied that the council has responded well to the issues raised and has been working positively and collaboratively with the regulator, which allows us to conclude that that, again, most significant of weaknesses does not exist this year. Finally, in respect of governance, we have identified, in fact, two significant risks this year. But at this stage, we have not yet concluded if we have identified any significant weaknesses. The two risks relate to the arrangements the council has in place for performing major work schemes. So this was an area where we did identify a significant weakness last year for a variety of reasons, not least due to a lack of oversight of work contractors were doing on two schemes in particular. We are currently awaiting some information from the council to allow us to conclude if there were similar weaknesses in arrangements for the major work schemes that did take place this year, so we're unable to reach our conclusion on that particular area until we have received that information, and an element of the objection we have received is on a very similar point. So until we have concluded whether there is a significant weakness or not, we will not be able to finalise this report, but we will report back to this committee as soon as we have reached our conclusion. The other significant risk related to governance is in respect of the adverse RSH regulatory outcome, which I've previously touched on. The last bit I'll say in respect to value for money is back to our previous report where we have raised performance improvement observations this year. So these are areas where we believe the council has the opportunity to improve but is not matters relating to an actual significant weakness in arrangements that occurred during the year. I won't go through these line by line, but the overarching theme with the 3 priority 1 observations is to ensure that where we have no longer identified a significant weakness in respect of the RSH regulatory outcome and in respect of weakness we had on tenant management organisations last year, there are still areas where the council does need to work to further strengthen and improve arrangements, and therefore we have raised observations to help ensure those improvements take effect. And I'm happy to pause and answer any questions the committee have.
Thank you very much. Any questions from members? No, we have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think then it's back to me for our report on the pension fund financial statements now. So since we issued our plan, we obviously obtained the final set of accounts on the pension fund, and so we did slightly revise our materiality because they'd been set at the planning stage based on the previous year's audited accounts. So that's just for completeness, that they changed very minorly, but we did work to slightly different values. Then again, if I take you to that audit findings summary, which is the 4th page of our pension fund year-end report.
That's our page 315, sorry to...
Thank you, 315, thank
Yes,
you.
no.
Much appreciated. So again, as we do with all audits, we consider whether there's a risk that management has overridden the control environment, as I explained earlier. So we do lots of work around the estimates and the judgments and the journal entries that get booked into the financial statements. And we did not find any incidences where management had overridden the control environment. We also look here, you do have some investment properties as part of the assets that are held in the fund. So we do consider that to be a significant risk of potential error and misstatement. And again, we use our valuation specialists to look at the approach to which you've taken to value those investment properties. And this year we found that those were balanced. We didn't find any issues with the way in which you or your valuers had gone about that. We did find, it's often the case in the harder to value investments, that there was a bit of a time lag in those investments. So when you prepare the accounts, you have slightly less up-to-date information for the hard-to-value investments. By the time we came and did the audit, you had slightly more up-to-date information. So we could see that, and there was an adjustment as a result of that. So they had been slightly optimistically valued in the draft accounts, but we're comfortable that there was not a material misstatement as a result of that. And the easier to value level 1 and 2 kind of pooled investment vehicles, we were really comfortable that they were balanced, and there was nothing that came out of our work that we needed to report there. So overall, it was a fairly straightforward audit this year. Again, it's a positive assurance for the committee, and as with the authority, I'm very happy and able to confirm our independence. We don't provide any non-audit services to the pension fund, and you'll see that the audit difference in that change in market value is on page 18 of our report, very immaterial in the context of this, but it was left unadjusted. The control deficiencies or recommendations, there's a similar deficiency actually linked. We reported it last year, and I'm sure your previous auditors did, around your approval of journals due to the system that doesn't allow sufficient segregation of duties. We obviously do enough work to satisfy ourselves that there hasn't been any issue as a result of that, but we just raised that, and that's the point that Hasina made earlier, that should be considered as part of the system, SAP system upgrade that you're going through, to see if you can enforce that system segregation of duties. So it's probably just important to highlight that, because that did remain an issue both on the authority and the pension fund accounts this year. But other than that, just happy to take questions on that audit as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Members have any questions? Got a question for Tim. Would that segregation of duties issue be covered in the report that we have on the upgrade of the SAP system? Is that?
No, it wouldn't specifically. No, that report we're having later on the agenda is really about the governance and the high-level arrangements around the ERP program. It wouldn't go into the detail of the segregation of duties, but rest assured it is being dealt with in the implementation of the new system, certainly.
Okay, that's reassuring. Thank you. Thanks. Any questions from members? No? Okay, thank you very much.
So we need to approve the account.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so, yeah, thank you very much. So can we note the adjustments? Approve the letters of representation to conclude the audit of the 24-25 accounts. Very important. Approve the statement of accounts. Agreed. Authorise the Strategic Director of Resources in consultation with me to make any final amendments if they're needed. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Oh, Andy, just do forgive me. Andy wants to come in.
I just had 2 additional recommendations which I think we should do.
Okay.
One is we have asked officers for a number of years now to report back on their action plan arising from the accounts in the next financial year. So I think we should ask them formally to do that again.
Okay.
I guess it would be on the likely work programme for next year, but I think we should formally ask for that. I think that's good practice.
Yeah.
And I also think we should ask officers to report back on the auditing of home owner service charges and whatever proposal they want to come forward. But I think we need to improve the validity of that work, and so officers may have a good proposal, but I don't think we should just leave the recommendation in the accounts and not take further action, Chair.
No, that's great, and I'm guessing that we will have that verbatim on the recording. Yeah. Thank you, Clive. Oh. Graham.
Thank you, Chair. On our page 262, there's concern expressed that there have been no KPIs from the insourcing of leisure services. Could we just state that we're looking forward to seeing those KPIs? The report says that they anticipate the finding will be resolved in the next financial year.
Chair, we could ask officers to report via email to the committee.
I'd be happy with that.
On
Thank you,
Graham's
Andy.
proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks. Great. Thank you. Okay.
Just note.
Do we
item
mention?
H, if that's all right.
Okay. So we just note item 8.
Yeah, item 8's just related.
Okay. So we can just note item 8. It's okay. It's the KPMG report. Thank you. Unless, no, you may have it down as 9 because the schools report is on the agenda. Yeah, it's okay.
Thank you.
I was kind of looking at that myself, yeah. Okay, so we now move on to item 9. Yeah, and Tim's going to present on this, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. A fairly brief paper here, which I'm sure you've read, but in short, it's a proposal to change our internal audit arrangements. We have, since 2016, had BDO as our internal auditor, and we are in the late stages of exploring entering into a shared service with Lambeth for the provision of internal audit services. In short, this would involve Lambeth taking the lead on our internal audit, employing all staff, who would then be council staff as opposed to externally employed staff, and you would continue to see people attending these meetings. They would simply be head of Lambeth's internal audit service currently, as opposed to BDO. So in terms of what you would experience, it will be some different faces and probably a slightly different audit plan, but a decent continuity of service. This is an existing service that Lambeth are already running, so we're not setting something up from scratch here in terms of risks to continuity. This exists. Lambeth use BDO currently, so our internal auditor BDO is also supplying support to Lambeth currently, so there is some consistency there, and they would continue to do that as we build the service up. So practically speaking, we'd be looking at implementing this in January, and from the initial outset, what that would mean in real terms is that the head of internal audit at Lambeth becomes our head of internal audit as well, and would continue to direct BDO in their existing activities, but would gradually, as they employ more staff in that service, phase out BDO over a period until our reliance on them is fairly minimal. So that's the proposal in brief, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from members? I have Ellie, then Andy.
Thank you, and for the short report, refreshingly so. Firstly, just to make sure I'm not getting very lost, this is item 10 on the agenda. Just to clarify.
Sorry,
yes.
It is item 10.
I think my question is about our options in the event that we want to change our minds. Once we have an in-house provider, my assumption is it's rather more difficult to change if we're not satisfied. Is there anything you can say to reassure me on that point?
I mean, we've discussed this ourselves in Lambeth. It is slightly more difficult to exit arrangements where you're employing staff directly, yes. The arrangement that we're discussing and the agreement that is being drawn up explicitly references that eventuality and effectively ensures that a fair apportionment occurs in the event that we chose to part ways. So there's a range of clauses in there that will enable that, but it basically makes sure that it is fair, and that if we were to withdraw for unreasonable reasons, then we may well find ourselves paying slightly more of the divorce costs. If it were Lambeth to fail to deliver the audit service that we are looking for, then they would end up slightly worse off. So we've written the agreement in such a way that in the unlikely eventuality that would occur, we're protected.
No, please, yeah.
Thank you. Just following on from that, is there precedent both for a shared services model similar to this one elsewhere, and then has there been any incidents of a council or other authority choosing to pull out of it again?
I think Clive might. Well, you've got experience of this, have you not?
I have a lot of experience.
Exactly.
It's been third time lucky. So in my last authority, we had a shared service, which was led by Ealing and shared with Hounslow. Brent were part of that for a period of time and chose to step away, not because of the quality of service, but because of certain factors relating to Brent at the time. So I think it demonstrates the flexibility. It's good for career progression for internal audit, which is a fairly niche sort of profession to be in small teams and the such like, and it gives a bit more I think strategic challenge back to the organisation as to somebody being here leading the service is here a little bit more of the time. BDO do a great job for us, but having someone here all the time, being able to use them to be involved in things like the ERP programme that Jason will be talking to us about later, and some of the work that Laura will be talking to us about the risk register, will be quite valuable too, I think, and I think we can add value whilst taking a bit of money out of the costs over the course of time.
My last question, I think, actually might have split into two, Chair, if you don't mind, just based on Clive's last response there. I'm, if not concerned, curious about the impact on Southwark's staff of nobody, of not having staff, or at least if I've understood it, in the first instance, employed within Southwark. Can you tell me more about how that decision was made and the options that we could in future have Southwark-based staff involved in the service? My understanding, and I may have got that wrong, is that isn't the current intention, or at least not in the first period. And then relatedly, the second half of the question, I don't know if I follow the point about career progression. Surely it's not positive for career progression for the authority that doesn't have any embedded staff.
So on the first one, the intention is that there will be staff based within these offices. The transition is a period. It is effectively because internal auditors are very difficult to recruit, and it will take some time to get up to full strength. So whilst we intend to get the ball rolling in January, we don't anticipate having a full complement of staff employed directly by the shared service for many months after that, most likely. So we anticipate a handover period, effectively, where from day one, BDO will be delivering the vast majority of the audits, and as we move through the year, that will transition as we grow the staffing cohort. So that's how we anticipate that working. But they will be, yes. So all staff will be employed by Lambeth. There's various ways you can do it. In discussions with Lambeth and with our legal services, we've decided that the best way to run it is probably for them to continue to host it.
Permanently, there's no suggestion that we would review that. Sorry, forgive me. Sorry, there's no suggestion we'd review that with the option of employing staff within Southwark considered. And then my question about what that means for career progression within Southwark.
So the career, I imagine, not to put words in Clive's mouth, but in terms of career progression, the sector as a whole, local government, internal audit and audit generally is struggling. So I think it's a slightly more generous interpretation of our contribution to the pipeline there.
Currently we have no internal audit directly employed staff at the moment. It's a fully outsourced service. Somebody has to be the employer, the T's and C's and everything else that goes with it, but there'll be provisions around time spent at Southwark, time spent at Lambeth. We have a certain budget and Lambeth have a certain budget. If you've got a small budget, then there's only so many number of posts that you have within your team. So therefore, for the individual joining at entry level, they have a far wider team and less bottlenecks in that system. Equally, we've also been speaking about our own internal grad scheme around at the moment. We don't offer internal audit placements, and that becomes feasible when they're working on Southwark audits, so to speak.
One more, and then I'm done,
Yes,
Chair.
no, please
I just want to get to this last point.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that very helpful context. It's not my area at all. But can I understand whether we are saying as of now, or asking this committee to say as of now, we will not review this, we do not wish to leave open the option of having staff who are employed by Southwark? And if that is the current intention, can I understand why?
Rather Tim will have a more eloquent answer, he often does. I think rather than having specific review put in, I need to be satisfied. It's part of my statutory responsibilities that we have an effective internal audit service. We need to provide you, and you will have your own views around an effective internal audit service. As Tim's already outlined, there's provisions to step away from that within the contracts that we're putting together. So rather than putting sort of short-term milestones and reviews in there, it's more sort of moving into an environment whereby if we become dissatisfied for whatever reason, we will have a conversation as officers and members together in terms of what we want to do about that.
In terms of the practicalities of why Lambeth and not us, yes, in an ideal world it'd be nice if we were running it ourselves. I think, these are fundamentally quite small teams with fairly significant start-up costs to get an internal audit service off the ground. You've got IT costs and all the rest of it. So it makes sense sort of practically to, if we're going to enter a shared service, rather than create one ourselves, enter one that is already functioning. Lambeth are providing other services through that team. For example, they do some risk and anti-fraud and things with other councils, so that they already have experience in that area. This is something that they're already doing. So if we were going to set this up in-house as just our own team, it would be more expensive, and we would be shouldering a fairly significant risk in terms of the staffing element. So going with Lambeth is the most practical option, we feel.
Thanks very much, Chair. So we are an Audit, Governance and Standards Committee, and when I look at this is not a good report. So you would expect us to be pushing back on this. So I would have expected a written series of options. We looked at the possibility of going somewhere else in the market. We looked at Southwark having it in-house. We looked at a shared service with Lambeth. We also looked at a shared service with Ealing or wherever. And you've not provided that to us. So I think we would not be doing our job if we didn't push back on you a bit and say, this isn't a very good paper. And you should have come forward with those options. So Councillor Cumbo has done a good job in my view, beginning to tease out
Yeah.
some of these issues. But first of all, it's not a great paper. So, Tim, what do you say to that?
Well, obviously, I'm sorry that it's not what you were looking for. I think perhaps to give some context, and I think it's in the paper. I think members were fairly clear in their manifesto back in 2022. I think that they were looking to in-source services wherever possible, and so my service in particular is almost entirely in-source, and so I'm pretty limited in areas that I can deliver on that, and so this was an obvious area in which I could make some progress in that respect. So apologies, it's not come to you as an options paper. It was on the understanding that I was expected to consider seriously insourcing wherever possible, and this was sort of the closest I thought we could get with this particular service.
Yeah. So I understand that, and that gives a political context. But we're going to look at an item on risk later on, and this is a step which has risk associated with it. So I would expect it a fuller, and it would be fine to come up with a recommendation, or the strategic director wants to do this and thinks that this is all in line, etc., etc. But I'd have expected a bit more on. We look through these different options. This is in line with the council's manifesto, and these are the risks and etc. So I think we have to push you a little bit on that. As I said, I think Councillor Cumbo's done a good job of teasing some of that out, and maybe we could, have a little bit more information by email on that so that we've got clarity. I had the joy of reading Lambeth's follow-up peer review, which is in their cabinet reports for next week, and that shows lots and lots of challenges with Lambeth, and it talks about, definitely job freezes, and there will be no new officers coming forward, etc., etc. They're facing many challenges, and there's some good work that they've done, and some of it is familiar to us in terms of temporary accommodation and the challenges. But how confident are we that they are going to be employing the right numbers of officers, and we're not going to get hit by their recruitment freezes?
Confident this is a function that they have to operate. This is not a discretionary area. In the agreement, we have a structure chart which illustrates what the post will be and who the posts will be working for. So there's a structure chart that broadly is in two halves. One half is the Southwark half, and one half is the Lambeth half. So we know exactly what it is we should be getting in terms of staff. And the agreement is worded so that we are paying for what we get. So in the event that there are vacancies, we will not be paying for vacancies. We'll get the benefit of those vacancies. Clive?
Yeah, so there is benefit, some of which we've explored around being in a shared service, but ultimately, we're two sovereign organisations required to deliver a statutory service and all the requirements that go into the specification of that and then the delivery of that. So I guess there's two lenses through we're looking. One is doing the job that required to be done, that BDO are largely leading for us at the moment, and then I guess the added value piece around how bringing teams together can deliver a little bit of extra value for us. But first and foremost is delivering the base requirement, which is an effective and a value for money internal audit service.
And then my last point is just, what's the type of timescales and what is the sort of handover from BDO to a Lambeth run shared service? Because again, this is a very, very, very short paper, and it doesn't really contain the level of detail I would have expected, and I can't really get an understanding from it about it sometime in the future, sometime in the next year, calendar year or financial year, but there's no real detail on this.
So in terms of timetables, we're anticipating signing the contracts the first working day of January, so that, in advance of that, so that we can kick off from January. We are meeting jointly, so BDO, Lambeth and Southwark will be meeting jointly in the next few weeks to start planning the audits for next year. BDO are in the room here, which sort of tells you something, I suppose. It's a completely collaborative approach to ensuring that the handover works. BDO are supporting us currently, obviously, as they're delivering our service. They are currently supporting Lambeth with resilience there. So the continuity is about as close to seamless as you could get in terms of handover. It's obviously fully in BDO's interest to ensure a smooth handover to Lambeth in January. The BDO contract as it is expires in March anyway, so this was approaching end of contract here. In terms of timescales, from January onwards, clearly Lambeth will be in a position to recruit as soon as they've got a signed agreement. But I would expect it will take 3, 4, 5 months before we're likely to see permanent employees in post, given the lead-in times for these things, notice periods, etc. If they're successful with all posts in the first round of recruitment, fantastic. It could be by next summer we're looking at a fully staffed team. If they're not, it could take slightly longer. It's difficult to say at this stage.
Okay. And then last point, is there, in terms of the formal decision, is there going to be an IDM? Is it on the forward plan? Is it delegated to Clive that he can sign off on this anyway? What's the formal decision-making process? Because again, I looked through the paper and that's missing too.
It's a non-key decision. It's delegated to Clive.
Good question.
So, Chair, I'm not trying to give officers a hard time for the sake of giving them a hard time, but we are the Audit and Governance Committee, and this isn't a report as good as it should have been, in my view. I think we should note it, but ask officers to give us an update by email of some of the additional detail and flesh out some timescales, etc. I think we wouldn't be doing our job if we didn't ask for that additional information, which isn't really covered in the papers tonight, Chair.
Fine, we'll do that.
But, the contract with BDO goes on till March, doesn't it? And it doesn't end till March. So there'll be, if we could have a report at the next meeting, could we? And then,
I mean, if I may, Chair, I think Councillor Simmons was requesting for something electronic, which we could turn around fairly quickly and get back to you as quick as we can. And then if there are questions arising out of them, I'm more than happy to pick up any further questions.
Well, Chair, is there a question after we've dispensed with that point for us as a committee on when we would like to look at this again and bring back some of those questions when the service is actually up and running or close to it?
yeah, as well, and indeed, that is, and I'm guessing that will come back, but yeah, it'd be good to have that enshrined on paper.
Yeah, I mean, if we agree, we'll build into next year's work plan for the committee some form of updated paper in terms of implementation. We need to give it a chance to prove itself, but we'll find something in the work programme for this committee next year to make sure papers brought back on that.
I just want to tease this out a little bit more, because if we receive that information that's missing from this report, and we still have doubts about this, we're not able to say that over email. We would have to bring it to committee, wouldn't we? Is that the case? Yeah.
Well, I would suggest once we've sent out the information, if you have concerns, you would flag it to me, and then we'd come round and have a conversation. I don't see a need to wait for the next committee. We'll detect from, I think Councillor Simmons, Councillor Cumbo has been clear in terms of the information they require. We'll provide that to you. If you're less than satisfied with that, then we can do something informally or formally, as the case may be. But let's deliver on what we said we'd do, and then we'll pick up the conversation from there.
Okay, if that's fine with everybody else, then yeah. So we note we note the report.
So we're noting the report and asking officers to circulate additional information electronically.
Thank you. So now we move on to item, there we are, item 11. Welcome.
Good evening, Paul Bergen, the Corporate Anti-Fraud Team Manager, presenting the Q3 report for the Corporate Anti-Fraud Team and the Special Investigations Team. and also responding to a carryover item from the previous meeting where I was asked a question about right to buy intelligence on finances. Would you like me to address that first?
I'll leave that to you. Thank you.
Yeah, please do.
Okay. In terms of the question, it was about what do we do about reporting and how do we report it? I reached out to colleagues in other boroughs, but I think they were suffering from survey stress and exhaustion, being asked so many times. So the quick response were the boroughs that had no stock to worry about, so there's no issue for them. For the ones that do have, some are more active, some are very active in terms of challenging funding sources. The sharing of the intelligence was the question. I think was the nucleus of the question was about what do we do with it. So it is shared, and as I mentioned before, it's through legal gateways, through necessity, proportionality, and justified. The way we do it is through reports to the National Crime Agency, to police, to banks, and potentially to other councils where we think that, and I think that was a part of it where you felt there was a concern about displacement. If they've gone away from us, what do they do? How do they do it? So if that intelligence is available, if the information is available and we can develop the intelligence, it will be shared across. And there has been a few examples of that. But it just depends on what you can accurately say about the information you've got. We don't just share it because it's there. We share it once we've done an assessment of the value on it. And although I didn't get that report for you in the way I wanted, there is the NAFIN has produced a fraud landscape report survey, which involves 129 participants, and it might be worthwhile you seeing that, I think, because it might give you a sense of what's going on nationally in terms of fraud work by local authorities. So I'd be happy to share that at a later stage if that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anything you'd like to ask me about that?
No, but if I could just give you my thanks, and I'm sure thanks on behalf of the committee for moving on with that. You'll remember that it was quite a concern that we may be losing. I mean, it's a concern that we're losing council housing under right to buy, but that's the legislation. But the fact that we might be losing them to criminals is of greater concern to us in the committee. So thank you for your work on that. Thank you, Chair.
In terms of the rest of the report, it's kind of business as usual. We are getting, I think there was a concern about a lack of reporting in housing, but you can see the numbers have come up a little bit from the housing reporting. Everything is what we'd expect to see, no massive changes, no thematic changes in terms of our fraud risk. So we're still moving forward as we have done for the past few years.
Andy.
Thanks very much indeed for this. So generally, all happy, all good, and it's very helpful to have this level of detail. I did have a query. The figure is lodged in my mind, but in 2009-10, we had 23 successful right-to-buy applications. Then the discounts were raised and the numbers went up. And I believe that as we approached the deadline for a change, about a year ago, we had roughly 1,000 or so applications. So can I ask, are there numbers of right-to-buy investigations scaling with the number of right-to-buy applications? Are we seeing a spike or not? And if not, is there a reason that we wouldn't expect to see a bit of a spike as we're going forward with so many applications?
In conversation with my colleagues in the Right to Buy team, I think we've introduced, as I mentioned before, some more training to look for different things, to check things. So we've improved their assessment of what they're seeing when they get the applications. And then so they've gone through a higher level of assessment when it comes to us. I think the process appears to be so long nowadays that I don't think we're through that yet. I think there may be more to come as we get through to the end of this year, because the pattern I've kind of assessed to be in existence was it comes at the end of September, October, then we hit a low, I don't know whether it's the Christmas low, and then we get a kind of another change at the latter part of the year. Maybe because people are getting to the point where their circumstances are changing, they see more salary, more available income, so they might be looking to get bigger mortgages. I'm making an educated guess around that because I think that's what does happen. But obviously the benefit or the risk around it is because the value is down to 16,000 now. So when it was 130,000, even if you wait for 3 years to release that, you're still getting quite a good return on the criminal investment in money if you were going to do it that way. Now it's 16,000, but it's not necessarily about the value of the money. It could be just about the layering and the changing the identity of the money as part of the money laundering, which is why we do the work we do. So there's a number of factors, but I expect that there might be a bit of a dip now, and then it might pick up again near the end of the year.
Thank you, that's very helpful.
Thank you. Do members have any more questions for the officer? Can we note the quarter-3 update for the anti-fraud and special investigations teams? Thank you very much indeed. We now have item 12, complaints and customer service. Welcome. Okay, did you like to speak a bit on
Thank you, Chairs. Should we just do some brief introductions? Dominic Kane,
Yeah.
Director, Customer and Exchequer.
Adi Adaremi, Head of Customer Operations.
And Michelle Peake, Head of Specialist Services.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So the report in front of you is an information report just to update the committee on where we're at in terms of customer service performance and in particular complaint performance, including members' inquiries. It touches on the resident experience plan, which is the strategy for improving the resident experience across Southwark, which was approved on the 16th of September at Cabinet. And really, the key things for that are focusing on transforming customer experience, digital experience, so looking at what we offer our residents online in particular, and looking at particular things like tracking of inquiries, how we can improve that with new technology, etc. And responsiveness, so responsive resident experience as well. So that includes looking at different approaches to face-to-face delivery, and we've got a pilot in a library early next year as part of that process, just to look at how we can potentially change the approach to how we deliver services, and also picking up on vulnerability as well, which is a key thing. So ensuring that our services are accessible where possible to those most in need. So ensuring that they've got access to the relevant services as part of that process as well. So supporting all of that is an action plan, which is quite detailed. I won't take you through that. But that looks at delivery across a number of key themes, those that I've just outlined. And the report also looks at complaints. So you'll see from the stats, whilst we see an increase in complaints, overall responsiveness, I'm pleased to say, has improved. Obviously, we want to see a reduction in complaints as a council, that goes without saying. But in terms of how we approach responsiveness, a number of departments have improved performance, not least housing, which has a big impact on the overall position for the council. Stage 1 complaints, the overall turnaround time is reduced now to within standard, which is 10 days. We've seen an increase at stage 2. That gives us resource challenges, but we are working through that. And as services continue to improve, as you've heard around the housing improvement programme, we'll start to see complaints reducing as well. So really the report picks up on some improvements, which shows it's improving and sustained is the important point over the last 3 to 4 months. Members' inquiries as well have shown improvement. So we're now seeing within standard performance across all services, and housing has shown a great improvement as well. So we're working closely with services. Obviously, we're the professional heads in terms of customer service, but it's really incumbent on each department to do their bit to ensure performance is improved. And this is reported back at corporate management team as well as to our cabinet member to ensure that performance is maintained, and where we've got particular issues we raise them as well. Good news, housing ombudsman. Obviously, any maladministration is not good, and we want to reduce that as best as possible. But it shows a trend of improvement from last year. So the annual report was as positive as those things can be for Southwark, and our overall maladministration rate was below that of other local authorities as well. So good news in terms of improved performance in that area. So that's it.
That's good to hear. Any questions from members? Ellie?
Thank you. I'm interested in the question of failure demand, and I'm not entirely clear from the information we've been presented with on how much of this was avoidable. Essentially, how many of the stage twos need not have happened, but also in how many cases was there a relationship between two or more stage one complaints? Is there any more information you can provide on that?
So I think from our position, we see that we're encouraging departments to work as best as possible to ensure there's a learning loop. So where we see repetitive issues that come up, then we're ensure that training and development is key to that. So we do see a reduction coming through on particular issues where they're addressing them as a root cause for those issues. So I think where we also have particular issues, like for instance, as soon as we get colder weather, which we have this week, Addy will see on the contact centre we get an increase in calls around heating, and we're feeding that back to service departments. I think as best as possible, we quality assure the response to stage ones as well. But you can only do a small proportion because there's quite a lot of work involved in that, and that feeds back to departments to look at improving the services at the first point of contact as well. So does that answer your question?
I mean, not entirely. I mean, thank you. It's positive that that there are signs for optimism, reasons for optimism there. But I suppose I'm just trying to understand the metrics, to be honest, and to what extent we have visibility of, if I can put it this way, how many of these complaints could have been avoided? How much of this was preventable because the information was known to the relevant council officers and it wasn't responded to correctly at the time? It doesn't seem obvious to me that we have that information, and I'm wondering if it's possible that we should.
Sure.
Sorry, I should have answered that. We do have that information available to us, and stage one complaints, around 45% are avoidable, and we've seen that. Stage two is less so now than it was before. What we did identify a year ago was stage one complaints weren't done as we wanted them to be done, so they were avoidable and we shouldn't have had the stage two, so we would have upheld it. But what we've done is we've put a lot of measures in place now, so heads of service and assistant directors sign off stage one and directors sign off stage two complaints now, and that's made a fundamental difference to the way that we're doing the stage. The stage one complaint is now written as if it's a stage two, and we are seeing a real shift in the way, but I can provide you those stats if you want them.
Thank you. I think that would be very helpful. And just one more question. I think I probably unhelpfully packed too much into my first question, so apologies for that. That's very helpful on the question of avoidable stage twos. Do we have a metric around how often the same case or same set of circumstances, if I could put it that way, leads to separate stage one complaints, which are in reality linked?
There is information within the iCasework system, and I know that housing have been doing a lot of work in looking at things, common themes, same things happening. So I can also get you that information. We don't necessarily do it as much at stage 2, but we do feed back a lot of training and support at stage 2 to avoid going to the Ombudsman. So we try and fix it before it goes there if we know it's going to go there. But I can ask housing to provide that information for you.
Andy.
So a few questions. So the stage 2 complaints little graph shows, it seems to me, both environment, sustainability and leisure and housing going up. Is that because, you're saying that's because the stage 1s have been dealt with more quickly and now these same people are coming back and then saying, I want to move to stage 2? Or is there another pattern or trend that...
I can certainly answer some of that for you. In regards to stage 1 complaints, especially in housing, they did have a backlog of stage 1 complaints, and I think about 6 weeks ago that was cleared down. We're seeing a really big improvement. They've done that, but what that did was that pushed a lot more into the stage 2 area, so that people had waited too long at stage 1. And I think that's what their complaint was as well. So they didn't feel that they were answered as well as they should be. So that's why it came to stage 2. Environment, it's going to increase through for the weather changes as well. So we do see if something's not quite done or bin collection, things like that, we do seem to see a lot more activity in the sort of later part of the year. So that's also happening now.
So in my day job, I have the delight of meeting with the CQC and local government ombudsman and Ofwat and Ofqual, and everyone is seeing numbers of complaints going up. Is there anything that indicates that those levels might stabilise at some stage, or is this just where we are at the moment?
Yeah, I think there's two things. I think you need to look at the level of upheld complaints as well, and that's an important stat that I think we should be adding in. We do capture that information because irrespective of whether you get a high volume of complaints, it's what's the outcome of that particular complaint, are we as a council upholding those complaints? So that's a useful stat for us to put in for you to see as well. In terms of particular volumes, I think from a housing perspective, the housing ombudsman became more prevalent and was certainly the publicity around the raising of complaints was certainly raised. And at this stage, we're still seeing significant volumes. We'll keep our eye on it and report back on it regularly to see how we're going with that. At the moment, as I said, stage 2s are relatively high, but performance is improving as well. At this stage, I can't say that we'll see a reduction, but we're working closely to ensure that where possible we improve services as well as a result of the outcomes of those complaints.
And then my second one was members' inquiries doesn't really have much detail. So for stage 1 responses, we've got a nice table. I think we should have that information for members' inquiries and also a bit more granular detail within housing. So might you be able to speak to that broader pattern, but then also to give us an email update, sort of drilling down into the different high volume areas and departments, please?
Certainly. I mean, the two biggest areas are really repairs and housing solutions. So in terms of housing assistance. So we're working closely with housing around how we ensure that we improve those particular areas. As I said earlier, Councillor, the housing improvement programme is picking up on a number of areas that will overall see an improvement in the offering to our residents. Happy to provide further information in email to give you some confidence that it's heading in the right direction. And in terms of a percentage as well, it's 67% are currently dealt with in time, and appreciate that we'll include that as a regular update as well.
Okay, thank you. Dora.
Thanks very much, Chair. I just want to inquire about the quality of the responses that you say has increased, and I've seen they have increased. I do a lot of housing inquiries, etc. But there are the odd one or two which I just see just glaring out at me, and I need to take it further. I mean, what are you doing to train your staff to recognise, for a start, the quality of the responses they're giving? And are you doing more training for them at all? Which I think that will help.
Thank you, Councillor. There's a few things where you say the members' review team, if there's a particular response that any member deems does not answer the question that you've been asked, if that could be forwarded to the members' review team, we'll obviously look at that and ensure that you get a response that's appropriate to the original request, and that will lead into improvement if it relates to a particular individual on their performance as well. Aside from that, there's quality assurance that happens as part of Michelle's team, where we do audit reports on particular items, and that's fed back to service departments. And as part of the resident experience plan, there will be a whole refresh resident experience customer service training package, which is due to go live in the new year, which will pick up certain requirements in terms of services as well. So there's a number of things really.
Do members have any more questions for the officers? Would any member of the committee like to speak further on this matter?
If we could just ask for that email update, Chair, as part of that.
Okay. You had some suggestions, but no recommendation. No. Okay. Okay. Can we note report? Yeah.
Oops, sorry, Chair. Nothing to add in addition to what we said about the further information on failure to linked cases and avoidable cases. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks. Okay, this is now item 13 on the agenda papers. Update on corporate risk. Hello. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Laura Sandy, part of the corporate risk and insurance team, sitting in within professional finance services.
Thank you.
I assume the report has been read. I did just want to highlight, obviously, it is a different presentation to what has been presented at committee previously. It was felt that changing to an assurance framework would give greater oversight of the main sources of assurance for managing the strategic risks in comparison to the simple register version that you'd previously had. This was something that the strategic director and CMT wanted to put in place, and we had support from some support from BDO to do this.
So there's like more narrative in it now? Is that main difference? Yeah.
Yeah, so the idea is it just sets out, so for like your normal mitigations, and then like the second line of what they call like the second line of defence, which is the oversight functions, and then the third line of defence would be any independent assurance sources or external sources.
Yeah, it's very helpful to have that extra information there, and it can be a further assurance. So, yeah, thank you very much. Andy?
Can I just, so there's a risk score and a controlled risk score. How they're calculated, and then what do we sort of roughly feel about them? Do we want everything down at 10, or, you know, are we happy with a 40, or are we terrified at an 82?
It obviously depends on the risk, the nature of the risk, but the calculation arises from looking at the impact of the risk and then the likelihood of it occurring. And there's different, on a scale of 1 to 10, different sort of explanations that go with why you would choose certain scores. The likelihood is 1 being extremely unlikely, 10 being extremely likely, and a variance in between. And then the impact score is based on a range of levels like low to medium to high to critical, or 10 being catastrophic.
And those factors, I think, if I recall, will include examples like £10 million loss to the council, or X number of deaths, or that sort of level. So it gives you a kind of a scale of a reasonably objective scale, so that you can make a sensible judgment about it.
So it's a matrix that's used to score.
So, Chair, through you, I'm sort of broadly happy with this, but I did have two pieces of feedback. One, if you could just put a little bit of more information in subsequent reports which explains how you got to those figures. And then two, I'm quite a quick reader. I found this layout really horrible and really difficult to read. So I would recommend, I think I would ask that you don't lay it out like this. I understand, you're from a spreadsheet and you just, but if you've got a column where you've got like 2 words on a line and you're reading 3 pages, like maybe I'm not a poor reader, but it's just really, really horrible to read.
Yeah, it was a struggle to get it into a half decent format, but we can look to refining that. It's just otherwise there is quite a lot of text that needs to be included, and I'm just conscious of like font size, but no, point taken.
So I think if I'm reading some of the sort of the middle columns, they're not too bad to read. If I'm reading the outer columns, it's killing me, and I reckon some people will say if you look at page 370, acute socio-economic factors, like we're down onto a 3rd page, and it's just horrible to read. So I think you just have to look at a different format, because you've got to present it to people in a format. We've got 450 pages. We've got to present it to people in a format that they're going to be able to read comfortably. And 450 pages takes a few sessions to diarise and to actually get through it all.
Clive, would you like to come in?
Yeah, it's a point well made. Welcome to Laura's Life. We've been really struggling with this, trying to find a balance between making it presentable, but certainly some of our colleagues around the organisations and the risk owners really want some of the text in there because it tells the story. So we have struggled, and we'll continue to struggle, and we'll continue to involve it, and hopefully next time you see it, we might have stumbled across the answer, but it's been difficult to challenge that one so far, hasn't it?
Ellie.
I also had a question about the scores, and I was wondering about whether to confess myself completely flummoxed. Are they percentages?
No. So probably next time I could share the matrix, so then you can see how they're arrived at, and the explanations that go with it, like the numbers.
But if I've understood you, then there's no way for me to guess just from the number how many factors have led to a score of, say, 82. And if it's fewer, then that's more concerning. If it's more factors, then it's less concerning. Is that roughly right?
I can turn that around so you can see. So that's how it. So you would look at your impact up the side, and then move across to your likelihood, and that would give you the score.
Does that answer your question?
I think the promise of an answer to my question was in the response, so thank you for that.
Okay. Would any member of the committee like to speak further on this matter? So I was at a training course yesterday with Councillor Wingfield. It was about audit and governance and overview and scrutiny working closer together, and there wasn't much in there that was suggested that we could do. But one thing that myself and Councillor Wingfield felt was that it would be very useful for audit and overview and scrutiny to receive the risk register in advance of the budget scrutiny process, so that members could see that and just that they may want to take that into consideration as part of their budget scrutiny process. I was also under the impression that, unlike what was said in the report earlier, the Chief Officer team do look at the risk register, and I think Clive will be able to, you can confirm that, but I thought it would be very helpful and useful if overview and scrutiny could receive the risk register, and maybe Cabinet could look at it sometime as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, so, it's easy to share, isn't it? It's written, it's there, so we'll show overview and scrutiny in, obviously, the early conversation around taking it to Cabinet. Usual process would be that we do the work with CMT, we bring it here for your feedback. I then take it alongside Laura to the lead member as part of the lead member's briefing. I'll ask the question around Cabinet there at that forum. I'll let you know the response to it.
Yeah, thank you. And with in mind, as you very well know, of course, that budget scrutiny is due to start around about December and get really underway in January. So, yeah. So, with those requests for information, can we note the report? Thank you. Great work. So, I thought Tim was going to lead on that. Yeah. Oh, it's Jason Martin. Welcome. Welcome. So, now on item 14.
So my assumption is that colleagues have read the report. This is the Southwark 360 SAP LP implementation. Some of the key points of note is that this is not just a finance HR payroll systems upgrade because it's reached end of life, but this is a critical part of our transformation. It empowers the organisation to use new processes and probably unlocks future potential as we move through. Again, there's several instances where we think of improvement of resilience and cost effectiveness. We have a programme budget which has been set aside for £22 million, which is noted within the report. And again, the way that we manage our control is by having a robust integrated programme plan that covers all our suppliers, but also to ensure that we have the right contract management in place. So these programmes are complex, these programmes are hard. We need to have this governance and control in place from the onset, and that's what we do have. Happy to say any questions.
Thank you. Andy.
So thanks very much for this. So a lot of it is sort of high level, or it sort of repeats stuff that we've seen before, which isn't a problem. Absolutely no problem at all. How would we know if things were not on track?
I think one of those things is that we will keep robust and honest risk and issue logs. We will also be able to see slippage against plans. So there is a plan, the plan is baselined. And when those things start to slip, they will be reported. They'll be reported to the programme board, and they'll be reported very, very clearly. So yes, that's how we would know typically. Yeah.
And then our little mini figure 1 on page 392 talks about implementation phase from October 25. Is that on schedule?
Yes, it is. We've started with all our suppliers on board. We've done quite a robust set of pre-planning. So again, things that we think could happen, we've included that into the plan, and we're all aligned, and we have resources lined up for that too.
Thanks, Chair. I've got one comment at the end, but that's for me for now, Chair.
Okay, that's fine. Does any members have any further questions? Does members have any? Oh, sorry. Yeah, Councillor Neil. Graham.
I'm a little hesitant to ask because I'm sort of asking about something that I don't really know about. But the print contract seems to be an open-ended contract, which is dependent upon sort of things that we don't have control.
Are you on the right report?
Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not.
I've got a feeling you may.
Thank you for.
You may not be. Yeah.
So what item are we looking at now, Chair?
We're on 14. It's
okay. Which would be the progress on the enterprise resource planning.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. In that case, I am on the wrong report.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, fair enough.
Excuse my confusion.
No worries. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't make that clear. Okay, so would any members like to speak on this matter further?
So, Chair, I think it's a really helpful report. I think Audit and Governance should continue to receive periodic updates on this. I think if we have a little bit more detail on, milestones and KPIs and, whether we're on track or if we're slightly adrift or whatever, I think that's the thing that's missing a little bit. But it's really important that we're well sighted on this, and I think we all understand how critical this is. I remember SAP coming in and just how many years it took to start to get more of the functionality on board. So it was a joy, and this will be a joy too.
Yeah.
I'm glad you share our optimism.
Thank you. Okay. Can we note the progress report?
Yeah.
There we are, Graham. Hello. How are you?
Just to introduce myself, I'm Stuart Robinson, Marshall from Corporate Facilities, and I will answer the questions about print contracts.
Thank you. Okay, so presumably you've all read the report. Did members have any questions? Councillor Neil.
Chair, no surprise. It's kind of an open-ended contract. I assume that there are set prices for demands, but the demands are flexible according to what's required, according to whether there's an election or what other events occur, events, dear boy. So in that sense, we haven't got a great control over the spend. What control have we got over the prices? Thank you.
Okay, I'll take that in two parts. Obviously, this is the retrospective approval, but we are in contract and we're in the process of procuring the new contract. We do it on an estimated value based on the trend of spend over previous years, including election years. We normally get it quite right. As you can see, it was 3.2 million. I think we went 25,000 over in that contract, which is pretty good for a contract that size. Putting that value on it actually gives us, and also a menu of items that we commonly order, template standard letters, other types of print and newsletters and things we send out, actually gives us better value for money, because we can go out to that full market for that value with the range of items. So it's a very certain procurement, and we actually get quite extensive discount by doing it that way. It is open-ended, but it normally comes in roughly on the estimate. We had to do an extension for different reasons in this case, but we're currently doing the spec and the procurement for the new contract. It's not a science, it's a bit of an art for the people that put it together, but it's normally right.
Okay, thank you. Andy.
It's a quick question for you, and also maybe for Clive. Are there any sort of wider lessons? So in an ideal world, we wouldn't have you here before committee. You'd be at home having your tea or out doing whatever you like to do on a Wednesday evening in November. I can see that there's personnel issues. There's a vacant post, and I understand that those have impacts. And I thought, I wrote down under 9 secondee agency, and we get onto 10. We've got an internal secondment, and that's great. But are there any sort of more general lessons that we could learn from this particular individual case in the way that things might be avoided in the future?
Yes, it was down to resources and individuals. As soon as it was flagged to me that the standard extension process was followed, it was on the forward plan, it went to DCRB, etc. However, the concurrence were not sought, the report was not signed. As soon as it was flagged to me, we sought concurrence and we got the report signed, got back into contract. We did seek an MOU with the supplier. They were happy to continue the service, so we had continuity. and we're now back in a procurement cycle. Recruiting to these roles is extremely hard, and we get excellent support from the central procurement team in terms of advice, but we have a very high volume of reports, and there's a lengthy process. So when it came to me, in terms of my role, I would say the planning wasn't as best as it could. We've now got our own internal board in facilities to plan and programme those works, also with a lengthy leading on procurement cycle with an element of risk built into it. So we've got plenty of wiggle room. It was a bit tight previously, but we were without 3 posts for a period of over 12 months.
And then, Clive, any wider lessons? So, you know, it would have been a disaster if our papers had not been printed tonight. But, you know, also letters going out to leaseholders, and, you know, we've got sort of legal requirements. But other parts of the council could have been something more safety critical.
Yeah.
Maybe we'd have a better line of sight of those more safety critical issues. Any wider lessons from this?
I mean, I guess there's 2 elements. One is the service element, in the sense of we are a large organisation, and should we find ourselves in a position where we no longer had a contract and a potential contractor unwilling to do business, we could have sourced very quickly, maybe not as cheaply as what we would have done through a contract, but we could have sourced through alternative suppliers solutions to any issue we come across. I think the wider governance issue is more of a concern for me. Stuart's a good chap, he's worked hard to pull this one out of the fire, so to speak, but does flag some concerns we've got around, should we say, governance of procurement around the organisation. This is your forum this evening to hold colleagues to account in terms of specific outcomes, but as I'm sure you understand, there's an officer process that we go through as part of this. This isn't the only part of this process, and that right, Stuart. But what you may see at January Cabinet is a report that proposes that we do something a little bit different in terms of procurement, an approach to build capacity within the centralised procurement team that Stuart referred to is quite small at the moment, therefore lacks capacity to give the breadth that I would like it to, and that will start a corporately led piece of work around refreshing the way we do procurement as an organisation, which will report into what we call the Corporate Transformation and Change Board, which is a subset of CMT, so to speak. So I don't think that's an immediate fix, but it's a piece of work that I think is an important piece of the work for the organisation to take forward.
Thank you, that's helpful. Thank you as well.
Do members have any more questions for the officer? Would any member of the committee like to speak further on this matter? No? Do we want to, thank you very much. Do we want to record any recommendations? Can we note the report? Thank you very much. Welcome. Thank you. Moving on to item 16 on the hard copy. Welcome.
Hi, just some introductions. So my name is Ryan Collymore. I'm the Director of Repairs and Maintenance.
I'm Keith Kiernan. I'm a Repairs Contract Manager.
We'll take the report as read, but as you know, this is a retrospective decision that was of a value over 100K, which is why we've brought it to this committee. And it was for housing adaptations for our vulnerable residents, and some of the reasons we've given for it being retrospective are based around competing priorities within our delivery teams, because our delivery teams are delivering fire safety actions and other delivery work. So sometimes contract renewal dates are not the main thing at the front of their minds when they're doing their day-to-day jobs. We have actually recruited a commercial head of commercial and contract management to lead our housing procurement team, because we have a housing procurement team. And part of that is to provide us with a contract register. And that contract register is the key to us knowing when we need to start looking at things like 2P information and stuff like that when we're going to renew contracts, making sure we're getting annual contract reviews done, signed off to move forward. We've also introduced lots more information about staff at our contract meetings. So within our contract meetings, any new staff that are brought onto a contract, we're asking for their details and the checks that they've actually been through. So when it gets to the end of the contract, we've got a lot more information on who's actually working on the contracts, and it makes it a bit easier to get that 2P list together.
Okay, thank you. Do members have any questions?
Chair, I've got a question on pink paper. So do we need to move the relevant motion?
We will have to move the relevant motion.
Can I move the relevant motion, Chair?
Seconded.
You happy to agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.